Hello, good afternoon. This is Relaks Radio, and I'm your host, Tim. We are broadcasting to you with George Schaft, and he's basically going to break down what is happening in the UK with regard to, when it comes to everything relaxing now. How serious are we supposed to take this? And, to consider when it comes to the lines of safety or, wearing masks, where are people allowed to go? How far are we allowed to go in? What type of occupancy? So, George, what is happening now? If you can just break it down to us.
Yeah. Hello. So today is the 17th of May, where, among other things, the government has lifted a bunch of restrictions on lockdown. People across the country now are able to do a huge variety of things they've not been able to for a long time now, including going to visit museums. This is St. Pauls Cathedral. As an active church and cathedral, it was always open. It was always open for worshippers, but now, as of today, it's also open to visitors. Not that there's many people actually in the visitors booth at the moment. After all, it is Monday, and more people are thinking of going to bars, restaurants, pubs, theatres on this day when you can. But I'm one more for the cultural side of things. And so for me, the big one is museums. What can I say? They make a noise.
It's nice when it makes a noise, so things are at least hoping to come back to normal very soon, right? That's right. So you're hearing,
I was just waiting there for the bells to go.
What is the bell? What's going on over there, George?
What's it like over here at the moment? It's actually very quiet. As I said earlier, it is Monday ultimately, and while museums, churches, and theatres are open, so are pubs. And so, if you are someone who isn't working today, and you are just going to determined, like, yes, I'm going to go somewhere.
So is it a mandatory to wear masks, or what is the occupancy allowance like? Are gyms open?
So every museum's been playing it differently, but generally the government's restrictions have been that you have to be wearing a mask. Your social distancing is still a thing, and so, for example, for the queues over here, like the ground is marked with those stickers that say 2 meters apart, and so on. Also, you've got to be wearing a mask, your PPE when you're inside the church. This is something I gleaned from their website. It's saying, come visit. 17th of May, we open up again. But at the same time, also make sure to be ready. Be ready for, pandemic times.
Absolutely. So are people coming out confidently? Are people, still concerned about how we can, go back into another lockdown if cases rise? What is the story there?
Well, I've not had the chance to interview people yet. After all, I have only just arrived, which is unfortunate, but there's stuff in the way. But at the same time, though, it is definitely true that a lot of people are heading out and, kind of doing these activities. I think there's a real sense, at least online, I've been gleaming, there's this real sense of just just get it over with, The public response, for example, when the government was saying, maybe future restrictions might be slower to lift with this new Indian variant of the coronavirus spreading around. yeah, a lot of people were very unhappy about that. So I would say that there's definitely people out who are, and I've watched a couple of people sort of already walk inside, in the visitors section. So there's definitely sort of people out there taking advantage of these new chancellors before, who knows, maybe the government might lock them all down again.
That's true. That's true. I mean, there's always that concern till I'd say at least 90% of the population is vaccinated. You might be still concerned about what's going on. I mean, when I say 90%, I mean with both doses. What would you say the ratio of people are?
Hang on, what was that again?
What would you say the ratio of people are in terms of, from where you've observed at least, from where, when it comes to if everyone is concerned about getting the vaccine, or is everyone okay with it? Are people still curious as to what is actually in it? Do you have anti-vaxxers, as they call it, or what's the story there?
Well, vaccine rollout generally been, one of the sort of few, in my opinion, few bright spots of the Johnson administration, where they've been making this big point of vaccinating everyone, having the rollout, having people get their jabs. There was recently, over the past couple of days, the government put out basically like a recommendation, please go get your vaccines. But even then, it's not been as severe or as widespread. It seems like here in the UK, as in, say, the United States or in France, where there have been like huge anti-vax movements with corona.
So breaking it down, what is the conversation with, when you're talking location-wise, if it's city-wise, is there any news that we need to consider?
It might be something worth considering, but then again, it's like the way these sort of anti-vax movements, I suppose, might be the best way to put it, kind of spread and talk about things, is ultimately often very disproportionate on very few people. For example, actually just this last weekend, it emerged that in the United Kingdom on social media, it was about 90% of all of the kind of original content, all of the kind of online misinformation when it came to vaccines was traceable to only 16 individuals. That's right, 16 people was responsible for the vast majority of this misinformation online. So it's one of those things where I sometimes wonder, how much is it really? Because if only 16 people are making 90% of the anti-vax content online, then that doesn't really suggest that it's that huge to begin with, at least here in the UK.
I'd say it's all a part of, I'd say, strategy, and if people are as accessible in terms of information, it can go the wrong way as well, right?
Well, wrong information is what it is, I suppose. Like, the internet has got everybody on it. People posting, their views, posting their rebuttals. Bound to be some things which are wrong there. But ultimately, I would say the internet's really good for also coming out for the real information. There's lots and lots of government sites at this point, which all have got the sort of basic rundowns of these restrictions, all listed on them. They're graphically quite good, I'd say, at the moment, where you go on there, they're easy to understand. Do this, don't do that. Make sure to be safe. Don't be silly. Please go get your vaccine. What is
the media usually saying now with regard to the precautions that we need to follow towards reducing or controlling the curve of the spread? apart from, in terms of, numbers, what can we talk about apart from wearing the masks and social distancing? I mean, we've been hearing this for repeatedly for over a year now. And what is different to from before? What is different now?
Well, the media definitely does play a role, and it can be charged guilty of certain things. Generally, kind of the mainstream media in the UK has been largely supportive of like, yeah, go get vaccinated. There's misinformation, don't believe it. But well, they often, for various reasons, do propagate a lot of these sort of stories. For example, in the weekend, one of the sort of stories that's been coming up with coronavirus is a story about Bill Maher, an American TV talk show host, getting sick with COVID despite being vaccinated. Whether this is the case or not, who knows? I must confess I only kind of saw it briefly and then focused on other things. But like, regardless of if it's true or not, like that is going to be a story that's going to get people to switch off and go like, oh, well, clearly the vaccine doesn't work because Bill Maher got sick. Again, whether it's true or not. And this is a story that is spread by the media at the end of the day. Like in a world of no media, Bill Maher would have just gotten sick even if he was. And then,
Absolutely.
his immediate friends and family would know. But with the rest of us, who knows?
I mean, there is also a lot of conversation around which vaccines are, good to take. We had the conversation with, Johnson's and Johnson's, and how they had to hold a couple of vaccines back, couple of batches, because of a minute amount of cases of blood clotting. I mean, but then, talking about the AstraZeneca, if it's the Pfizer, I mean, there's a lot of conversation around each vaccine. People are a little concerned as to, which vaccine is safe, which vaccine is more effective. I think, we'll need to do a bit of, I think it's best if we, actually continue this conversation in one of our other streams where we break it down or, explain it to the people, right?
Yeah, I think that politics has been very unfortunate when it comes to the vaccines, because there's multiple different vaccines, which are all ultimately medically about as good as each other, but they come from different countries, and so different countries with different politics, they want to slag off countries that have
It
done
depends on
something
the
or said
relationship
something
you
that
have with the
annoys
country
them.
as well, right?
For example, the AstraZeneca vaccine. The AstraZeneca vaccine, partly made and developed in the United Kingdom. However, that's meant, though, that in the European Union, where we've just Brexited from, they've already got like a political motive to go like, yeah, but obviously it's not as good as some other vaccines. And then another one is, in Russia they made the Sputnik vaccine, which again seemed enough, but countries which don't like Russia, like the United States and again the European Union, been putting out like, oh, but the spooky Sputnik, it's got, it wasn't tested properly. Who knows? It might not be effective. Ultimately, my line at the end of the day is, no matter what the vaccine is, if offered one, take it. They're all about as effective as each other, medically speaking, and the protection from any one of them is fantastic and exactly what you need during these pandemic times.
That's right. And another to add to what you said.
Oh, what was that?
To add to what you said, I think it's best you take both vaccines and not just one, right? As you need to take over a 3-month period. But yeah, with that, I think we can we'll get back to you with more news in the lines of the vaccine and talking about business entrepreneurship. This is the Buzz, and I'm George. I'm Tim with George here, and we'll be signing out. But stay in touch, stay in tune, stay in touch, and stay tuned for a lot of conversation around what is going on, so we can proceed with informing you what is going on in the world, and updating you with how you need to proceed. Thanks, George.